has the trade deadline brought us? That is the question. Hopefully we have all of the answers. This is your Hitting Clip. We're glad to have you with us. I'm Lauren Shehadi. Scott White, Boston makes a splash getting Victor Martinez. He can catch, he can play first base, he can DH. What can he do for fantasy owners, Scott?
Well, he's probably going to do pretty much what he did in Cleveland. The Red Sox obviously going to play him every day at all those different positions. His value doesn't change as much as some others' players' value does. Mike Lowell, still just going to be a part-time player, probably going to play even less now, maybe a 3 or 4 day a week guy, and that pretty much destroys his mixed league appeal. Same thing really goes for Jason Varitek. Now he's probably going to start less because the Red Sox are going to slot Martinez behind the plate occasionally. Varitek also just looks like a low and mixed league guy now because he's not going to be playing enough.
So Martinez can play it all, which means Adam LaRoche is kind of expendable, rather.
Yeah.
But he's headed to ATL. So what does that mean there?
Yeah, he's heading back to Atlanta, so he's going to become an everyday player again, going to get everyday at-bats. Casey Kochman's the guy going back to Red Sox. He's now going to take the Adam LaRoche role, probably play even less now that they have Victor Martinez. So LaRoche, worth adding again in NL-only leagues. You used all your FAAB budget on him in AL-only leagues. Sorry, you got him for about a week. Nick Johnson, going to be the everyday first baseman for the Marlins. Emilio Bonifacio, probably going to become a utility player, not worth owning in mixed leagues. Jorge Cantu moving over to third. Jerry Hairston, Yankees, they're going to use him as a utility guy. He's not going to get everyday at-bats anymore, so he's useless. Scott Rowland, his role doesn't really change going to the Reds, but he's another player going to the NL. More players going to the NL than the AL, so if you have FAAB dollars in AL-only leagues, you really don't have that much to use it on. Orlando Cabrera, he's a guy staying in the AL, gets a better supporting cast there in Minnesota, probably going to score more runs with Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau, all of them hitting behind him.
Are you guys taking notes?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here. You better listen up.
A lot of big changes.
That's right, and we're starting with the American League starts, and we're going to start with Johnny Peralta, who is a start, but I'm confused. I'm a fantasy owner. I'm sitting there at home. You say sit him, now we're starting him. Why, Scott?
Well, the thing with him is he ended up having the best week of his life, naturally, when I told you to sit him.
Naturally.
Yeah, but he is the kind of player who's going to hit 10 home runs in the span of 2 weeks. Looks like that 2-week period is beginning now. So you're going to want to get him active in any leagues where you've counted on him at all this year. Billy Butler, another player having one of his hottest stretches of the season, had a 5-hit game the other day. The big thing about him is he hits a lot better against left-handers. The Royals facing 6 of them in their 7 games this week. 963 OPS against lefties compared to 740 against righties. Huge week in store. And then Chris Jimenez, this is more of a deep sleeper. Don't know that you really want to add him in mixed leagues, but he is a catcher-eligible player, getting regular at-bats elsewhere with the mass exodus in Cleveland that's been going on over the last week. Kind of a Brandon Inge situation. Obviously, he's not going to hit like Inge does, but he has some pop. Going to get more at-bats than the standard catcher.
Okay, I hear you talking a lot about matchups in the starting list, and now we're going to talk more about numbers, and we're going to talk about Josh Hamilton. Look at this list. A lot of names on this list, guys. Josh Hamilton, Jason Bartlett. Look at that. Carlos Pena. Don't make him go on a tear, Scott. He will. He's very capable.
He is capable, and they all are capable of having big weeks. But the thing, starting with Josh Hamilton, he's just been awful all year, not getting any better, still hitting only .225. It's August, man. You can't keep banking on him to break out all of a sudden.
Time.
It could happen, but you got to win now, and I would sit him for hotter players like Josh Willingham and Franklin Gutierrez. Carlos Pena, he was also a sit last week. Kind of risky because he's a Johnny Peralta type who can go off and hit 10 home runs in 2 weeks, but he actually turned it off more in the last week, hitting only .215 now. Alexi Ramirez and Russell Branyan both have minor injuries, both been cold anyway. I'd sit them. And then Jason Bartlett really hasn't been the same since coming back from his ankle injury, hitting only .250 in July. He was hot earlier in the year. One of these is an aberration. Looking at his career track record, it was probably that early performance, probably just a low-end mixed league guy going forward.
What are your thoughts on Andre Ethier? This is a guy that has 20 home runs, 6 RBI so far. You got my attention, Scott.
Yeah, well, he was another guy on the sit list last week, and he was a good sit because he ended up he's having an awful week on the road, even though just the week earlier he had a great week at home. Well, he's back at home now where he's a much better player, hitting 100 points higher, has 16 of his 20 home runs, You start them at home, you sit them on the road. It's that simple.
That's simple.
Kyle Blanks and Everth Cabrera, both kind of sleepers in the Chris Jimenez category. Young players, they're going to be streaky, but they got hot recently. Blanks more power, Cabrera more speed, so if you need those, they're worth a look. And then Delwyn Young, he's kind of another beneficiary at the trade deadline here with Freddie Sanchez going to the Giants. He's better in the outfield, but he's a good offensive player. Pirates are going to try him at second base. They could end up getting a nice little bargain there, and you could too in fantasy. Again, a low-end guy. I'm not rushing out to grab him in all leagues, but he might be worth a look if you're desperate there.
You know what I just thought about? You were saying awesome at home, right? Terrible on the road.
Ethier.
What about James Loney? Kind of the opposite, right?
Yeah, he's the yin to Ethier's yang over there. Great numbers on the road, hitting 70 points higher with all 7 of his home runs. Does all his damage on the road. Does nothing at home. So you got to sit him whenever the Dodgers are at home, sit Ethier whenever they're on the road. The sooner we all come to terms with this, the less I'll have to talk about it, and we'll all be happier that way. Orlando Hudson, Loney's teammate, he's also a sit. Always a decent start because he hits in front of Mandy, but slumping lately, and the Dodgers face Yvonny Gallardo, Javier Vasquez, Jair Jurgens, Derek Lowe. You can do better this week, I think. And then Andrew McCutchen. It's hot early when the Pirates first called him up. Looks like he might have finally hit a rookie wall here. I don't know. Maybe he misses all his teammates getting traded out of town.
You never
know.
But
1 home run, 1 stolen base since the break, 1 hit in his last 4 games.
You need to do better than that, right?
Yeah, you got to sit him.
That's right. Thanks, Scott. Thank you for watching Everything Fantasy Baseball. You know the spot. We'll talk to you soon.